Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to read from chapter 11 from the Canto 7 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Brilliant as the Sun, retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam. Mukam Kavati Vachalam Pangum Langhate Girim Yat Kripatamam Vande Shri Gurum Dintarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chataneshwaram Hariyam Tatsa. The Perfect Society. Yudhishthira heaved a deep sigh. He loved hearing his beloved Krishna glorified. Prahlad's remarkable history had emphasized its importance. He thanked Narad effusively, and Sage asked him what else he would like to hear. The king said, I understand that Varnashram Dharma is how all activities can be connected to Krishna service. Please explain in detail how this can be done. Narad said, My dear king, many exalted personalities are present, including Manu. Let one of them speak. Excuse me. They are much more familiar with Varnashram than me. Yudhishthir said, O Narad, because of your austerities, excellence in mystic yoga, and fixed meditation on Krishna, you are widely celebrated as the best of Lord Brahma's sons. No one excels you in tolerance and compassion, and no one knows better than you how to dovetail everything in Krishna's service. Therefore, I beg you to tell us how to lead a godly life. Narad turned to Krishna. Very well, if Krishna gives his blessings, I will relate Lord Narayan's teachings on the principles of Bhakti Yoga. Krishna smiled and raised hand. Narad said, Hear first about the appearance of Narayan and his twin Nara. They were the sons of Murti and Dharmaraj. Narayan is the supreme personality of Godhead and Nara is his partial manifestation. They perform severe austerities in Badrika ashram to benefit all living entities. Narayan embodies Vedic truths and is the origin of religious principles. He inspires the commentaries of great spiritual authorities. Only when we work for his satisfaction without interruption or ulterior motive can we experience complete satisfaction of the body, mind and soul. The evidence for this is in the Vedas and the commentaries of great souls. Yudhishthir said, O great sage, please explain the religious principles by which we may satisfy Lord Narayan. Narad said, there are 9 activities that directly satisfy the Lord and 21 general religious principles support these 9. Everyone leaned forward, eager to hear what Narad had to say. One must be truthful, merciful, austere, clean, tolerant, and be able to discern between right and wrong. Yudhishthir said, O Narad, what kind of austerities should we do? Please also explain how to discern between right and wrong action. Fasting on Ekadashi days is the most important austerity. To understand discernment, you need to know about Varnashram. I will speak about that shortly. First, however, let me tell you the other important religious principles. These are control of the mind and senses, non-violence, celibacy, charity, regularly reading scripture, simplicity, satisfaction, and service to saintly people. By cultivating these virtues, we can gradually reduce unnecessary material engagements. We must also practice silence and gravity. Avoiding unnecessary talk. We should consider the difference between the body and the soul in all situations. As well as this, we must distribute food equally to both humans and living entities in the lower species, knowing that all souls are parts of the Supreme Lord. All these activities will make our practice of the 9 direct devotional practices more effective. What are these 9 practices? The first 3 are the most important, replied Narad. They are to regularly hear and discuss Krishna's pastimes and instructions, reflect upon these and chant his holy names. We must also serve the Lord by implementing what we have heard and understood. We must worship the Lord's deity form and offer him our obeisance. Finally, we must become his servant and friend and surrender our body and mind and words for his satisfaction. O King Yudhishthir, by cultivating these 30 qualities, we please Lord Narayan. Returning to your question about discernment, you should know that the right action for one person is not right for another. What should and should not be done is determined by a person's varna or occupation, an ashram or spiritual status. However, without the primary devotional activities, it is not possible to apply varnashram. Why is that? Asked Yudhishthir. Lord Brahma has declared that Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas take initiation from a bona fide spiritual master and study spiritual science. Without such societal leaders, varnashram cannot work. To be eligible for spiritual initiation, one must engage in the 9 primary devotional activities. Why must the 3 higher occupations engage in devotional service? Because they guide society and preside over the laws and economy. Human society must be of high moral character and grounded in spiritual knowledge to be peaceful and prosperous. That is why a part of family traditions is to perform the Garbhadhan ceremony before conception. This entails the parents chanting mantras to purify their mind so that their union may attract a pious soul. This is the main function of this. It is not meant for gratuitous enjoyment but to generate a population eligible for liberation. Thus, children will be more inclined to perform the other family purificatory traditions like worshipping Krishna, studying the Vedas, and giving charity. These practices further purify their consciousness and qualify them to be spiritually progressive in all the phases of their lives, from student life through married life and into retirement and renunciation. Yudhishthir sat straighter, alert to learn all he could. As the emperor, it was his duty to make sure all in his kingdom were peaceful and prosperous during their lives and attained liberation in the end. O great sage, please tell me everything I need to know to ensure the system of varnashram operates correctly in my kingdom. Narad said, the Brahmins, the spiritual guides in society, have 6 duties. 3 of these ensure their purity and are imperative, and 3 are means of securing a livelihood. What are the 3 essential duties of Brahmins? Asked Yudhishthir. They must worship the deity, study the Vedas, and give in charity. What are the ways they can earn a livelihood? They can teach the Vedas and deity worship to others and accept charity by which to live. I am a Kshatriya, but I am inclined to study the Vedas, worship the deity, and give in charity. Is that permissible? Kshatriya can do everything the Brahmins do except receive charity. Their livelihood comes by levying minimal taxes on their subjects. They can also impose custom duties and penalty fines. However, they are not allowed to tax the Brahmins. What are the duties of the Vaishyas? They are responsible for society's economic development. Prosperity, which primarily depends on agriculture, trade, and cow protection. They should consult with the Brahmins on where to focus their effort according to time, place, and circumstance. Many people don't have the high moral and spiritual qualifications to fit into these categories, but they may have some gift for study, administration, fighting, agriculture, trade, and working with cows. How do they fit into society? The Varnashram system defines these people as Shudras, said Narad. They should accept employment from person in one of the 3 higher occupations. As a king, I often give gifts of land or cows to the Brahmins. Are they permitted to work the land or maintain cows for livelihood? Yes, Brahmins can earn a livelihood by agriculture, cow protection, or trade. However, those more spiritually advanced prefer to maintain themselves on what they can beg each day. Those even more advanced will simply eat what they can find left in the paddy fields after the farmer has harvested his crop. The most elevated transcendentalists live on the grain scattered on the grain merchant's shop floor. explores, do people from the other varnas also have multiple ways of maintaining themselves? Narad said, except when there is an emergency, no one should do the duty of a higher occupational status. For example, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras should not teach the Vedas or deity worship, nor should Vaishyas and Shudras do the job of a Kshatriya. However, this rule may be waived in the times of emergency. With one exception, a Kshatriya should never accept charity, even if he fulfills the role of a Brahman. What kind of emergency would justify such exceptions? Asked Yudhishthir. My dear king, as Kali Yuga progresses, the Brahmins will become corrupt and spiritual culture will be lost. This will constitute an emergency, and great Vaishya acharyas will justifiably train people from the lower occupational orders to take up the work of Brahmins and teach spiritual culture. When there is an emergency, how can people maintain themselves? There are 6 ways: Arita, Amrita, Mrita, Pramrita, Satyanrita, and Swavritti. Arita means collecting grains from the field. Amrita means collecting grains discarded by others without begging. Mrita means they can beg for grains. Pramrita means they can grow their grains. Satyanrita means they can engage in trade, and Swariti means they can take employment. Brahmins and Kshatriyas can adopt any of these except employment. Vaishyas and Shudras can accept all the above. Why can't Brahmins and Kshatriyas work for someone else? Brahmins must be learned in the Vedas, and Kshatriyas should be expert in worshipping the gods. Taking employment would hamper their study and worship. How can a qualified Brahmin be recognized? He will have the following traits: a controlled mind, controlled senses, austerity, cleanliness, satisfaction, forgiveness, simplicity, knowledge, mercy, truthfulness, and most importantly, he will always try to please Vishnu. What are the qualifications of Kshatriya? He must be brave on the battlefield and never capitulate in a conflict. He must exhibit fortitude in difficulty, remaining determined to overcome his adversaries. It is important to be charitable. He must be able to tolerate physical deprivation. He should also have the capacity to forgive. He must respect and support the Brahmins. A qualified Kshatriya has a positive disposition and high integrity. How can a qualified Vaishya be identified? Successful Vaishyas ensure they worship the gods, the spiritual master and Vishnu. They have faith in the words of the Vedas, that by executing their religious duties they can advance in prosperity and enjoyment. The rest of the time they busy themselves making money. What qualities should we look for in the Shudras we employ? A Shudra should genuinely respect his employer and work to secure his interest, never stealing from or lying to him. Whenever possible, he should give special attention to protecting cows and Brahmins. He may attend religious ceremonies with his employer, but he should not recite the mantras reserved for those spiritual master initiates. Yudhishthir thought for a moment and then said, O sage, for a man to succeed, he needs the cooperation of a good wife. What qualities should a man look for in a woman? A good wife has 4 essential qualities. She respects her husband, she is happy to serve him, she is willing to follow him on his chosen path in life, and she is kind and respectful to his relatives and friends. How should a wife serve her husband? To start with, she should make herself attractive to him, ensuring she is always well dressed, even while performing housework. She should keep the house clean and decorated with aromatic incense and flowers and ensure adequate supplies. She should tell her husband the truth and never boast of her own merits to him. She should control her senses and speak gently to her husband. What if her circumstances are such that she cannot afford beautiful clothes and ornaments or aromatic flowers and incense? The most important consideration is that she serves her husband lovingly to the best of her capacity according to her circumstances. She should not be greedy but be satisfied with what her husband can provide. She should be materially competent to manage the household duties and fully conversant with religious principles. How can a man know all this about a woman before living with her? He should be attentive to whether she is truthful and inclined to speak gently. He can also make note of her appearance and behavior. For example, is she clean? Are her dealings irreproachable? Such a woman will be a good companion to a righteous man. What if such a chaste woman marries a sinful man? Should she still serve him and follow his path? Not at all. A virtuous woman should disassociate herself from her husband if he is addicted to one or more of the four sins, which are namely illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. In other words, like we follow the four regulations. If the husband is indulging in one of the four, she can disassociate herself from her husband. However, if she is genuinely righteous, she will not remarry. Similarly, man can separate from an unchaste woman. However, if her husband is righteous, she should serve him very faithfully, just as the goddess of fortune serves Narayan. By so doing, she is surely to go back home to Godhead with her saintly husband and enjoy an eternal life of happiness. Yudhishthir sat quietly for a moment, taking in everything he had heard. After a few moments, he said, generally, Brahmin men marry women from the Brahmin family, Kshatriya men marry women from Kshatriya family, and so on. Both husband and wife are accustomed to very similar traditions and customs in these cases. Sometimes, however, there is a marriage between the two people from different backgrounds. Ah, yes, there are two types of mixed marriages. In one, a man marries a woman from a more qualified family. Such marriages are known as pratilomacha, or in other instance, a man marries a woman from a less qualified family. These unions are called anulomacha. Progeny from anulomacha unions can accept the professions of their father. However, this is not the case with the progeny from the pratilomacha unions. If the boys are not given to thievery and the four sins, they may accept one of the following traditional occupations of the Chandals: washerman, leather dealer, actor, washerman. If it's not the case with the progeny from the Pratilomacha unions, if these boys are not given to thievery and four sins, they may accept one of the following traditional occupations of the Chandals: washerman, leather dealer, actor, cane splitter, or fisherman. If a man's father has more respectable occupation, how can he be satisfied with his work? My dear king, ask any Brahmin well conversant with Vedic knowledge what will make a man most happy both in this life and the next, and they will tell you if he accepts work which suits his nature. It does not matter if it is less prestigious. What of those given to thievery, drunkenness, illicit sex, and gambling? Are they destined to take a lower birth? No, they will get another birth like their current one, in which such behavior is the norm. How will such unfortunate people ever attain liberation? The same way as everyone else, he should serve the Supreme Lord as best as possible according to his nature. This will give him a better birth in next life. Then too, he should try his best to serve Krishna according to his capacity. Thus, birth after birth, he will be elevated until he is completely free of all material desires. What of those sinful fellows who are completely disinclined to serve Krishna? Is there no hope for their salvation? There is always hope. How? Two metaphors come to my mind by way of explanation. Firstly, what happens to an agricultural field which is repeatedly cultivated season after season? Well, it will lose its fertility and the seeds there will cease to germinate. Exactly. Now consider this second example. If I put one drop at a time of clarified butter into fire, what will happen to it? Fed by the butter, the fire will flare up, replied Yudhishthir. How about if we flood it with tons of clarified butter? Will it flare up even more? No. Well, no, the force of so much butter hitting it all at once will most likely extinguish the fire. Quite so. That's why the Vedas sanction those who have low-class births to overindulge in their lusty desires. There is a chance that they will become disgusted and inquire into spiritual life by doing so. I have met people who though born to such degraded parents are not themselves so inclined. Must they stick to these Chandal professions? No, the family one has taken birth to is not the important criterion determining one's occupation, it is a person's nature that matters. For example, if a person born to Shudra parents exhibits the nature of a Brahmin, he must be accepted as such. Similarly, Dvij Bandhus or the unqualified progenies of the three higher occupation must accept the same types of occupations as Shudras. So we'll continue reading from chapter 12, which is 4 spiritual class from the 7th canto next time. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.